There is one question that beauty and wellness trends are obsessed with right now. How do Gen Z consumers discover products organically? And while everyone seems to have an answer, very few have the whole picture. Because when you think about how you actually found the last wellness product you bought, it used to a basic process. You searched it up, went to marketplaces like Amazon, Nika, and done. Nowadays, searches have changed, they have become conversations. Nobody types hair serums anymore. We ask, I have hair fall, dry and frizzy hair. What should I do? Or, I live in Delhi, the pollution triggers my allergies. What should I use for nasal congestion? You don't get 10 blue links anymore. You get an actual answer with brands names already baked into it. And you can't advertise inside that. There's no space to buy. Google even said it out loud at I/O this year. AI mode is the default now. So today we are not asking where search is going next. We are asking what happens when search itself starts disappearing. And to help us make sense of all this, we have someone over here who has been thinking about us all these past years, Mr. Ashok Deepan, founder of Cognitude. So, this is the first time you have been in front of a camera. You have mostly been behind the camera so far. So, tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Nothing in special about my career. I think I started way back 2 decades, ago in technology with IBM's and Infosys, the blue chip companies. Post which is where I wanted to sort of understand what goes behind the market and got to understand from doing pre-sales consultation and in terms of deploying the product in the market. And I think since then it's almost been a decade and a half I've been stuck towards both the technology spectrum and the marketing spectrum. So ranging from, as I said, blue chip companies from IBM's till startups. I was roped in even by Google Capital, which invested the first firm in a net tech company. And today, after close to 2 decades, we have taken time to sort of launch Cognitude as a consulting company.
And next to the popular products, there were these little tiny lines that says descriptions generated by Gemini. I have scrolled past 100 times almost.
Very true. I think mostly consumers don't notice this, but the moment when you visit into a Google search engine and you key in any product that has use, you will let's say you might find a lot of sections within a page, popular products, deals in shops nearby, and all the product that's actually gets listed there is actually generated by AI, which is the Gemini model of Google. And the context of it, which users, why does Google actually show that information? That to say that this product is not being positioned by a brand, but rather it is generated by by Google's through its algorithm, which I said again is the Gemini help. Where do you spend more time shopping? Is that on Google or Instagram or Facebook?
Instagram, obviously.
So even if you have noticed within Instagram, while you're browsing through your feeds, and if you try to happen to search on the search bar, presumably, let's say, for example, you're searching has heroes. Today, even within Meta as a landscape, Meta AI has sort of come in and it actually syndicates a lot of brand names, right? And it gives you, these are the products, these are the ingredients. So it's not now consumers are socially shopping on Instagram, but even they can use the search and try to ask if they've seen an advertisement or let's say a feed of a content, a short form reel. And if they try to search for a particular product, it actually sort of smartly gives out what is the best product that's going to be useful for you and what are the ingredients within that as well.
So if all these surfaces are doing this now, so Google, ChatGPT, Meta, where does a brand even start?
That's a very good question. Each brand has its primary handle of focus. For example, a brand that is pre-nascently, spending a lot of on ads would mostly be present on social. So if they start from there, that's one. But equilaterally, they have to sort of focus on all the three channels because a consumer sort of discovers a brand on search engines, which is right from the last 2 3 decades. That's what it is, and the consideration cycle happens typically on social handle. So you could take it even as that they are present across on to minimum platforms, generative platforms such as ChatGPT or let's say for example Perplexity in case of India should also be one of the primary focus. Reason being, today your millennial workforce, or you could consider even the Gen Alpha buckets, are also sort of looking at certain, I would say sort of private questions are sort of asked in ChatGPT and Perplexity. I have such a skin tone. What do I need to, sort of have in terms of serums, extra? And those are not sort of publicly searched on search engines. So I would say all, but it starts from the priority surfaces from where they are getting most of the consumers from.
But here's what confuses me the most. I keep seeing the same products, same brands, same marketplaces whenever I search a product in Google. Why is that happening?
Um, Good question. See, Google natively as a search engine prefers, I would say, platforms that have the highest authority. So you will traditionally keep seeing for consumer brands specifically, you would see Amazon or let's say Swiggy and your Instamart and etc. in terms of your quick commerce, right? That's one of the reason, and that's where the shopping actually happens. That's where you're getting maximum click-through rates on a particular product. Why does a brand typically sort of dominate is a different spectrum altogether. It totally depends on the efforts as a brand has put towards all optimizing all the marketplaces together. For example, we spoke about hair serum just a while back, right? So an hair serum might have multiple SKUs. It could be based on size, it could be based on your type of your hair texture. Now, each of those SKUs needs to have a standardization between their own website, what's put in, let's say, for example, Amazon, what's put in terms of your quick commerces, the metadata or your SKU IDs and extent of it. All that plays a pivotal role to ensure and their efforts that they're putting behind, and they start dominating these surfaces called as popular products or in shops nearby you or deals and etc. in terms of it. But nevertheless, can another brand sort of come in place of, can also sort of dominate? You can see classic examples, like there were times when someone searched for smart fence or smart ceiling fence, only Crompton and Attenberg, sort of brands were sort of coming up. Today, you would see that market's actually changing. You have a lot of players coming in place. Now, how does Google sort of fit in? Whoever is meeting the technical and the, I would call it as maybe the content parameter of what a particular product does, they can take a particular share within this entire, surface.
So brands were told to rank on page one and optimize according to SEO. But what if the blue rings disappear?
Again, I think it's a quite relevant question here. I think a couple of weeks back in Google's conference, IO conference, they announced that the search engine is going to drastically change. We have lived with the last 3 decades used to, links, and even me as a marketer or a consultant, we were asked to focus to bring the our part of the blue link right on top, so that you get the maximum, click through rates. Today that's not going to be no longer existing, because down just hardly, I think maybe months down the line, your entire Google's landscape is going to change more like the one that you typically see in AI mode. It's going to be very similar to how you interact with ChatGPT or Claude. You're asking a question and it's going to give you recommendations. So it's not going to have any more blue links. It's going to recommend you brands, what you want. And it's also going to source you those links and tell you this is the product and this is the page, and you need to go, put you into that particular surfaces, whether it's a marketplace or whether it's an own, website in terms of it. So I think whatever has been, sort of conducted over the last 2 decades, whatever brands have done is going to turn obsolete. And it's now time that they start optimizing towards what the generative engines require rather than the search.
And what about the brand authority? How does anyone actually build that when the AI is the one who is deciding what to frame about the brand?
Again, so gone are the days where you could infuse and seed information about a brand, whether it is your social assets, your social platforms, whether it is your surfaces where you're trying to blog and write, certain content about. And search engines were trained initially to go and source that information and assimilate it in the first page of Google. Today, what happens is the generative engine's algorithm sort of kicks in. It creates its narrative from an assimilated set of metadata. Now, how does a brand sort of, ensure it's the right, content or information about its brand is being syndicated? Ensure that there is a uniformity across how we are syndicating information across multiple platforms. Because today, generative engines go across not just your website, it goes to third parties' websites, it goes to affiliate sites, it goes to bloggers, it also goes to social platforms, which means your brand narration across all these platforms needs to be the same. Be it a brand or be it a product, it needs to articulate. You can't go and, let's say, for example, go and say, this serum product is for frizzy hair. On another platform, you go and say, this is for dry and a frizzy hair. Right? Those are total different, statements. Now, that's what the generative engines are going to sort of look at. What are the signals that it's getting across from different, platforms, and it assimilates and creates a narrative. Now, the question that you asked is purely to do with brand. There's another layer to it, which is your brand sentiment. What is it actually narrating about whether the brand is good or a product is good or not? Now, if you have, sort of nascently seen, it is very smart enough to put it a diplomatic sort of conversation, but that's not going to be no longer the truth. It's also going to go into, forums and discussions, for example. Look at what the consumers are actually talking about, and it's going to give, clean cut, paragraphs. What are the pros and what are the cons? Now, how do you mitigate negative sentiments to come across? Again, you need to ensure there are channels where the consumers can go out and sort of vent the negative this one, and not on the public, sort of, let's say, forums and spaces. So that's one way. There are a lot of PR interventions that can be done to, again, to syndicate, let's say, positive, sentiments across. And it's the same traditional practice that's been followed for years. It is just that you need to sort of now cohesively do it, whether it's against a product or whether it's against a brand sentiment.
Okay, so that generally changed how I'm going to search for my next product. Thank you for finally stepping in front of the camera.
Thank you. Happy to be here.